roses, and don't they smell fine? Fresh cut hay, lilacs on the table, strawberry jam, and that sweet, sweet maple. It's a gleam in your eyes, it's a dream of deep roots under infinite skies. It's a feeling of hope, you always take it with you wherever you go. That feeling of home, it's the gravity that pulls my soul. It's the grit that gets the pearl. It's radically rural. I hear the wind chimes blowing in the breeze. Sounds like cicadas and the wind through the leaves. A cold, quiet morning and dewdrop dreams, calling from adventures in mountains and streams. It's the gleam in your eyes, it's a dream of deep roots under infinite skies. It's a feeling of hope, you always take it with you wherever you go. That feeling of home, it's the gravity that pulls my soul. It's the grit that gets the pearl. It's radically rural. The red-clad sunset, the best kept secret, looks like happiness if we can only keep it. Open your eyes, you won't regret it. Here's your invitation, can you accept it? It's a gleam in your eyes, it's a dream of deep roots under infinite skies. It's a feeling of hope, you always take it with you wherever you go. That feeling of home, it's the gravity that pulls my soul. It's a grit that gets the pearl. It's radically rural. Radical youth, clean energy, natural solutions for you and for me. Using the tools, mapping out our dreams, investing in our leaders and radical teams. It's the grit that binds us, the truth that finds us. Who knew you could have it all? Who knew rural is radical?
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Now Show, where we have awesome Mary, who is our producer, as co-host for the first time, and I'm so excited. Mojo is traveling right now, and so I love when we have different permutations of things like this, like just to keep the consistency of showing up every day right now. And this is the Now Show. My name is Dan. On the X platform, I'm going by Bard sometimes. It's a whole thing. But I'm a composer, performer, educator, and chief academic officer for the David Z Foundation, where we transform lives through the magic of music. And that the video that you just watched was actually one that I wrote when I was presenting at Radically Rural,
Wow,
I think
that's
2 years ago. We did a session where we had a 3-hour session that had like a little lunch break in between. And we started with all of these people from all over the US coming together to talk about how radical it is to live in rural areas. And so just good segue to our guest right here, John Carlos. We bonded in the DMs over what it's like to live in a rural area and to also have a mindset of change making and place shaking and things like that. So, John Collier, so you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll pass it back to Mary, and I want to learn more about awesome producer Mary.
Yeah, so I guess just to kind of keep it short, you know,
As far as on X, right? I'm a clarity coach. That's what I focus on. My background is in social media marketing. I got into that back in 2011, and I enjoy marketing. It's fine, but in my opinion, a lot of marketing is really just messaging and communication and kind of positioning of value, and really just one side of the equation communicating that value to the other one, and that other side of the equation either wants it or doesn't want it. And like everything else about marketing, kind of just is overcomplication and like business stuff about it. And so I got tired of it over time, and I really wanted to figure out how to pivot in a way that still leveraged my skill set, but in a way that was more suitable to what I'm actually passionate about, which is just helping people make an impact in their life. So that's where clarity came into play, because I can still help with marketing if I really wanted to. Right now, I'm actually working on two different offers. One of them around business development, and then one of them around the customer journey. So a little bit more back into the business side of things, but still wanting to focus on the clarity side, because in my personal life, I've seen that without clarity, you're not really going to get very far. And quite frankly, you can pick any successful person in life, and if you ask them if they're clear about things, or like if they think that they would have been able to do it without clarity in their life, that they'd probably look at you confused and say absolutely not. So that's kind of what I've learned over time.
Yeah, that is beautiful. So before we pass Mary the mic, just a quick response to that. That's something I've been going through a lot lately, is just looking for that clarity. So I'm so glad to be having this discussion about clarity. And I would agree that we can do a lot, and it can it can even have impact. But if we don't tie together with the thread of clarity what we're doing, and really mind our actions and objectives, then it's not going to feel like we're really being successful, because we're just kind of chasing rainbows or butterflies or lightning or whatever it is, that you're chasing in the moment. But that clarity of purpose, mission, vision, purpose, that wonderful cocktail of clarity, it really helps us to not only be impactful, but to feel impactful, and also to be able to track our impact because we have a goal. So I love this. And yeah, so I ask every guest to think of a drawing prompt. So just we'll get this out of the way right away. And Mary, thank you so much for putting the everything in the comments. Still, not only are you on screen, but you're like backstage, and you're just awesome, Mary. So our prompt is to draw what life would look like without clarity. What does a life without clarity look like? And I have my paper plate and Sharpie markers that I'm going to get started while we pass the mic to Mary, to hear a little bit more about you, and especially if you could touch on that subject of clarity as well. I think that will really help open up this conversation. And if you're in the audience watching this, you can join us in the listening lounge. We'll be putting a couple things in probably after the show today, just because I'm on my phone at Starbucks. It's a different kind of day, but we really want to hear what folks are thinking about clarity. And then please do share your creations, either digital creations to the prompt, or analog. So over to you, Mary.
What was the drawing prompt? Did you say today?
Yeah, John Carlos, do you want to give that sentence? Because I think I'm remembering right, but I want to hear it from you.
It sounds like basically just what does life look like without clarity, basically.
Without clarity, you won't get very far. It's really interesting, because I have a 23-year-old who I had a conversation with him last night, and he's exactly at that place. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. He's a singer, songwriter. And at that age, it's like very daunting, but he's like, I don't know if I should just he's got people saying, hey, sign with us. And he's like, I don't know if I want to do that. And so, yeah, he's like, no clarity. And I said, I don't know, dude, I think we need to get you like a life coach or somebody that can help you with that clarity, because he has like no idea. He's scared to do the wrong thing, or go down the wrong path,
I might know a guy.
Yeah.
I would honestly say, just real fast to that, especially that last note, in terms of, because that's what a lot of people deal with, that fear of like, well, if I make this decision, then the consequence is going to be this. But 9 times out of 10, if you actually ask the people that are in that position what the consequence is that they're actually scared of, the answer will also be, I don't know. And so that's usually where I like to focus in on situations like that, because if you don't actually understand what you're afraid of, and it's just this like preconceived notion of just like the potential failure of if this doesn't work out, and then it's like this other variable of uncertainty. What really is happening is it's indecision that's coming from a place of compound fear, you know what I mean? And but like at the entire time there's zero uncertainty. The only certainty you have in that situation is that you're not going to do anything because of all of these uncertain issues. So
that's a great,
it's usually like, what is the actual consequence that you're scared of, and start there.
Right.
Yeah.
To be able to actually name it. I think there's so much power, as we learned from Shakespeare, power in the name, right? When you can name something, and actually that'll help you visualize what it looks like. Because I'm actually sitting here a little bit stumped even on the writing prompt of what does life look like without clarity.
I can show you my example. I wrote it, I drew it in like 15 seconds.
Amazing.
Because
I love
this is often all it is, really. You know, you're here and you've got all these different directions, but then there's walls on the other side of every direction.
Oh my goodness.
And
that's deep. I got like instant goosebumps there, John Carlos. That's maybe that's a connection, because that's often how I feel like day to day, doing several different braided endeavors is what I'm calling them, because it's I kind of convinced myself that I have very clear goals in all three endeavors that I'm on. So, namely, I work with David Z Foundation. It's a nonprofit, and we create music videos around the world on youth mental health and academics. So that's pretty clear, like what that mission is. But then there's my mission as a composer, and I've hopped around from film to musical theater to songwriting to actually touring for 3 years, and myself as a musician, not a whole lot of clarity, just a lot of possibility, and I keep chasing possibilities, but where am I chasing them is my question. So I think, yeah, that actually gives me an idea of what to draw. Yeah. So can you tell us, John Carlos, what brought you into this mission to be a clarity coach? Because you so clearly stated it, that you're a clarity coach.
Awesome. Yeah, this is so awesome. Yeah.
It's actually an extremely personal story that I don't mind sharing. I will say I'm sparing certain details because the story does get kind of dark. So use your imagination in that regard. But at the end of the day, it comes down to 3 pillar components for me. When I was misdiagnosed with ADHD when I was 5. It's actually just autism. Unfortunately, I was prescribed Adderall at 5 and took that kind of on and off towards the end, but I took Adderall for basically 12 years. And so when I was about 17, I asked my parents, or really just kind of communicated to them. I was like, hey, I don't feel right when I'm on this. So like, I would like to stop taking this. And they kind of just said, well, you're 17, you're basically an adult. If that's what you want to do, you can make that decision. Because it was primarily to help me get better grades, this, that, and the other, yada, yada. The other aspect is anxiety, which is also connected to a very, very deep depression that I experienced for 9 years. I'll spare some of the details in that, but it was very life changing and challenging around when I was 17. 17 through 19 were very pivotal years for me to be able to kind of remove all of the learned habits and all of the learned values and all of the learned fears and just all of these extra things that I didn't create myself. I simply just adopted them throughout life and took them as mine, whether it be certain philosophies or certain emotions or even just certain habits that felt cool to my friends, or like, this is the right way to do things, just all of that stuff. So I spent a lot of time removing all of that. And then, unfortunately, due to the situation with Adderall, when I was 13, I just wanted to feel different. And so I, turned to drugs, and I had a lot of challenges there. But after a while, I learned how to take control over all of it by centering in on my values. So it really came down to, for one, accepting the, not necessarily identity, but it is a filter for me, the autism. So it's just realizing, the strengths and the weaknesses there, but also just focusing on the strengths. And then that helped me kind of rid myself of addictions and stuff like that. A lot of addictions are very binary and rudimentary in terms of like how they actually stem, and it's less the actual substance and more so the impact that the substance brings for you that you actually get addicted to. It's the outcome, not usually the substance. But at the end of the day, clarity for me it's something that keeps me going, because relating it all back to the autism, right? With anxiety held under control, because I do have a mitigation process for that, but also with addiction mitigated as well. It really just, my everyday challenge is autism. Every day I wake up and the world feels a little bit different. My internal stimuli is at a different baseline, and maybe my ideas aren't as clear as I would like them to be, but I control that by waking up early, having some hours to myself to acclimate to the environment, whether it be the world or even just my psychology for the day. And then from there, it's just about leveraging the fact that because I do this every day for myself, I took that and I was like, all right, cool. How can I package this up and duplicate it for other people? Because I'm not special in the sense where like, I'm not the only unclear person in the world. The other side of it, and I'll end it here, is that I'm also not a master of clarity. It's just that I know how to achieve it quick and consistently. And so it's just one of those things where it's not an end all be all. It's not a state of achievement. It's very much like enlightenment. Like you don't just become enlightened and then you're enlightened forever. It's a journey. It's like a hike. So yeah.
Oh my goodness, so many points that I really relate to, and especially on the autism piece, because I was diagnosed way late in life myself, and it came from actually I had already been teaching special education for 3 years, and that's where I got kind of curious about when I'm learning all of the different strategies to work with people with autism. I'm like, wait a minute, something's ringing a little too true. And so I was at I was at Chico State, and that's where I got my ed credential from. And I was co-presenting with a colleague, and I was talking to this actor, Alex Plank. He was on The Good Doctor as a guest star, and I was just like kind of riffing because he was just presenting on um, uh, his special interest of the lumens in flashlights. And I was just kind of talking to him, and especially about technical theater. And then he just stopped talking, and he looked at me, he's like, "Oh, you're autistic too." I'm like, "What?" And so like that, I was just reeling though. I remember that day so clearly because I called my wife and I was like, "Honey, you're never gonna believe it. I'm autistic." And she's like, "You think?" I was like, why didn't you tell me? We've been married for like 20
Yeah,
years. Why
you're
didn't you
so
tell
wild.
me?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, but I also remember just the visceral response that I had too driving home. It was, like a 5-hour drive from where we lived in Modoc to down to Chico. And so I was just like kind of going through a whole bunch of emotions. And then I was like, hey, I feel like I need to get diagnosed. And then um, the Cassie asked me just like the perfect question, and she asked, "What would it change?" And I said, "How I feel." And she's like, "Well, let's do it." So it was just, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's anything more perfect she could have said in that moment because I was just like having this huge epiphany, and so that response both validated and also challenged myself, putting myself in a box or like having, growing some limiting beliefs out of it. It was like a so what mixed with, hey, I love you, you know. So
Mhm.
yeah, I really
Yeah.
relate to that.
Yeah. If you don't mind me telling a little bit
Yeah.
of a story too, because I can relate with that too, because I have a I have one child, she's 26. She's in the what do they call it now? They don't even call them autism. They call
It's
it
all ASD, kind of been
neurodivergent
ASD,
reduced.
yeah.
neurodivergence, they're calling them now.
Okay. Yeah.
But this is a crazy story. So my daughter, that's my daughter, and she was increasingly getting very anxious to go to school every day, and as she kept every year, she would just get worse and worse, and she would say, "Nobody likes me. Everybody's always mad at me." She had just these social. Um, she wouldn't get the social. What do you call them? cues. And finally, when she was in 7th grade, I was driving home because it was one of those days again where it was really hard to get her to school because she was super anxious, and finally got her to school. And I'm driving home, and I'm asking God, and I'm like, God, like, what's going on with her? Like, can you tell me what's going on? And in my head, this word, which I had never heard in my life, it said Asperger's, and I was like, what? Do I have Asperger's? And I'm like, and so I drove home, went on my computer, and I pulled, and I typed in Asperger's. I thought it said Asperger's, but then it corrected it for me. No, not
Oh my
like,
gosh, I love it.
like, yeah, okay, I get it now.
Okay, I get
I
it.
wonder why everybody always laughs when I say that. But anyway, it corrected it for me, and then I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is her completely. It was like the craziest thing. So I called my husband at work, and I was like, hey, I think that our daughter has Asperger's, and I said, well, let's go get her diagnosed. And sure enough, like, is that crazy or what? And so I have one in that, and then my son, who I was talking about earlier about the clarity, he's ADHD. I'm ADD. I do take Adderall, and my doctor, um, I suspected like years ago, but I didn't get any medicine until just maybe about 7 years ago, and my doctor said, if you have ADD, it's going to work for you. If it doesn't, if you don't have ADD, then it's just going to mess you up. And I said, I'll take the chance. And so she gave me a really low dose. And when I took the Adderall, I was like, oh my God, this is how normal people really function, because, I'm like all over the place if I don't take my Adderall. And so, my son doesn't take anything. Um, and so, yeah, so I would love to, have him talk to you, and I think that'd be awesome. And then maybe also my daughter, because I don't think she's going in the right, where her passions are. She's a teacher, but she really loves theater. And, so I don't know, have them. So you got a client right here.
There you go.
And I would say that I'm happy to talk with them also. I always offer free discovery calls to anybody. But when it comes down to it, there's three really basic pillars to break it down into, and it comes to your values, your decisions, and your behaviors. And really, it all comes back to your values, because your decisions should be in support of your values, and then your behaviors are kind of like an in-between thing, because that's a mix of your conscious behaviors as well as your subconscious behaviors. And so your decisions are going to be what kind of reinforce positive behaviors. But then at the same time, your behaviors are going to reinforce what decisions you're likely to make. So it becomes this, this cycle. But both of those, that cycle should be in favor of your values. So, when people are following their passion, a lot of the times, especially when it comes to business, we sometimes say, don't try to monetize your passion, because you're going to do it the wrong way. And like, yeah, there's things to respect there, because business doesn't care about your passion. But at the end of the day, if you're not following your passion, what you're doing is you're enabling yourself to just make poor decisions later on, because when you're not acting within your values, you start to act out of impulse. So if you are a naturally lazy person and you like to sleep, and there's nothing wrong with that, but this society has made it seem like that's a terrible thing. But like, it matters what you do when you're awake, not how you like to rest. And if lazy people just enjoy their rest, that's all it comes down to. They just like to rest in a particular way and don't like to do it all that complicated. That's all it is.
Is that what my son is? He just likes to enjoy his rest.
He just likes to rest. It's cool. It is what it is. What he does with his wake time is what matters more, right? But when you're not acting within your passion and you just ignore that, it ends up coming out somewhere later on in impulses, in meaningless desires. That's usually a big one. And then for some people, it's a little bit worse, and they start to act out in life. And so that's where that takes shape. But you have to do things from a place of your values, because otherwise it'll catch up to you. Just as people have sleep debt, we have value debt. If we are not acting within our values, we are going to make a careless decision later on, because it's what we truly value. So
Yeah. Well, I wanted to lift a couple things out of that because I think it's interesting that we bring up the word lazy because I think it has definitely some murky connotations in certain
mhm,
contexts. And when I teach music theory, I actually teach laziness. And really, in doing that, I'm teaching efficiency because in if we're writing like tonal music, for example, then we want to have as many chord tones stay the same as possible. So we're being like lazy. It's the path of least resistance. But when in putting in a life context, I think there's this pattern that we have of exertion and recuperation, and everybody has these different ways that they exert and different ways that they recuperate. But we can't live in one all the time. So we have to find ways. Like for me, recuperation, it may seem a little odd to people because mine is running 4 or 5 miles with the dog. That's my recuperation. And my exertion is actually sitting down to think or to write something because it's hard work for me to just be able to um, clearly articulate my thoughts when I can speak a lot better than I can write. So, that's just some of the patterns of exertion and recuperation that I have in my life. But I think sometimes when we think of that path of least resistance, uh, we can lean into it a bit because it's a moment that we might need some recuperation, whereas other times might want to subvert it or do try and fight the path of least resistance, that urge to be lazy. So it's just an interesting word to me in different contexts.
well, I think there's also a concept there because if everything is about exertion and then recuperation, then there really is no real room for rest, because
Mm,
what happens there is and not to say that you're doing it wrong, but many people that fall into this cycle,
mhm,
they never rest. They're always recuperating.
mm,
Like it's always the off version of them not doing is recuperating. And in a
interesting.
sentence, that's why the energy market, the energy drink market, is such. It's a I think it's a $10 billion market. It's actually probably a lot bigger than that now that I think about it, because I'm remembering some sales data. But Celsius makes a lot of money. Pepsi
Mhm.
actually ended up making some kind of deal with them because Pepsi owns Rockstar, if I'm not mistaken, but Celsius does so well and did so well at the time that they ended up making some kind of special arrangement deal with them so that where they could buy ownership in Celsius without outright buying it, and that way it wouldn't completely mess with their own product, but they still couldn't avoid the amazing market share that they had. So they made that decision. But the reason why energy drinks like Celsius do so well is not because of their designed target audience, which is like bodybuilders and like people who are high performers, stuff like that. It's people who are just working regular jobs now in retail and things like that, because they just need that extra boost. And it's not just the 1 Celsius, it's 2 Celsius. It's 1 Celsius around 9 a.m. and then another one around 3 p.m. But these are just regular jobs that these people are working. Celsius should
Right.
not be the thing that they're relying on. But trends like that happen
Yeah.
because oftentimes people don't rest properly. They fall into that cycle of exert, recuperate, and the recuperation is their rest. And that's why I was saying, lazy
Yeah.
people shouldn't get all the hate that they do, because they rest more than they recuperate.
I love it. I actually have never thought of the difference between the words recuperation and rest, but you're right. They are different. It implies there's kind of a nothingness, like that beautiful nothingness of just a lazy day. Um, and it can be sublime when we allow ourselves to do it, but I don't often allow myself to do it. So how do you get lazy? How do you lean into lazy? I'm really
I don't work
curious now.
hard.
There
I
we
don't
go.
work hard. No, and there's so much truth to that statement. I tell people that I stopped working a long time ago when I started working for God, and when I've had jobs, I've always told people that I don't work for or I work for God. XYZ is who pays me. That's just what it comes down to for me. But right now I'm working for
Mm,
myself, and everything's going really well. And so like for me, it literally is that, like, I work for God, and what he's done for me in my life in my 29 years on earth is he's trained me to be able to deal with my own problems, the problems of my wife, the problems of my newborn son here soon. and then that of my clients. I truly believe that the way that I work and the grace that I go about life is what enables God to put other people that have the problems that I'm specifically trained to solve. He puts them in my life, and I take those opportunities to help that person in the best way that is mutually possible. And so, just throwing that context. But as far as like the actual work that I do, I leverage a lot of AI. I've reduced a lot of the monotonous tasks. When I was 19, I made myself a continuous improvement process. So it's a series of 8 different processes that I take all decisions through. And then at the end of it, there's a 16-point weighted rubric. And if decisions don't meet at least a 70% efficiency rate based on that rubric, I don't make those decisions. Over time, certain decisions are just considered to be baseline decisions. And until something about the data suggests that this is now an inoperable or an inefficient decision, that decision remains in place as related to that specific task or to that specific category of information, like food choices, garments, any kind of like daily things that I need to do to be a human. Those choices are automated for me, and that's just, I make that as a consistent part of my daily life. I do the same thing in business, though. If there's work that I will have to do more than 10 or 20 times, I'm doing it one time a week or something like that. And then I just organize the outputs. Yeah. I've completely operationalized my entire life.
Well,
That's
decision
awesome.
fatigue is a thing. Go ahead, Mary. Yeah, I was just
No,
thinking
I
about
think
like
that's awesome.
decision fatigue.
You said food, your food and your attire is auto. What is it? You said automatically.
It's automated, basically.
How do you do that? I'm interested in finding out that.
So food for one, some people do like a basic meal plan. I can't really do a meal plan because like I just won't stick to it, so to speak. So what I do for myself is I do weekly groceries that are very specific to the diet that I want to keep, and then I give myself options. So for each meal, I have roughly 2 to 3 options to pick from each day. So it's not necessarily completely monotonous and static, but that's it. I've only got those 3 options. It is what it is. I make those at specific times, and everything is very specific. Even sometimes the choice that I make for breakfast will automatically default what I'm going to have for lunch by way of balancing the diet. So there's also just kind of like conditional decisions that are made as well. Same thing with clothing. I keep a very specific wardrobe, just very comfortable t-shirts. I wear a lot of shorts, and I have 2 pairs of shoes. I keep it very, very simple. Any of these choices, when it comes to food, it's just meant to fuel me. I enjoy having nice dinners with my wife, but that's about it. There's nothing meaningful for me about food. Same thing for my clothes. So I don't apply a lot of extra attention or effort to those decisions. And so because decision fatigue, I do everything in my power to avoid decision fatigue.
Yeah. It's time for me to have a garage sale.
There you go.
Yeah,
too many decisions to make.
No, it's interesting. I really relate to that too, Giancarlos, because I'm very much the same with lunch. I have salad for lunch every day, and it's a matter of the choices in the grocery store of which bag do I get, and then I just put, I go from left to right in the fridge. Like that's the salad today. Cool, I'll put some chicken on it, or cool, I'll put some bacon on it, or whatever. But we also just after our first 15 years of marriage, I remember the question, what should we do for dinner, was so it took so much brain power, and just sometimes it'd be like, well, I don't know, you decided yesterday. Well, what are you gonna, so it just became this thing, and we switched to a meal planning app, and now we just plan all the meals on Sunday. We go do the grocery store. We just buy the ingredients we need for the week. We schedule out the meals. And so now with, our lives the way they are, Cassie manages a wildlife refuge, and I've got all these things going on. So we don't have to decide, what are we going to do for dinner? It's just, it's already done. And we have an efficient set of steps to do it each week. It's dependable, but we still have a bit of variety because we've got a 14-year-old daughter, and she would not probably appreciate the same thing for dinner every night.
So the beauty of that right there, and what I like to highlight and kind of like frame things is just in that simple action alone, you and your wife have removed 356 decisions from your year.
Hmm. That's huge.
You compound that by 10 other types of decisions or categories of decisions, and now we're talking about upwards of 4,000 decisions that have been operationalized in your life on a
Well,
yearly
and
basis.
yeah, also, I mean, just the number of minutes received back in our basket of time, because we don't have to spend 8 to 10 minutes deciding what we're going to do, finding a recipe, maybe going to the store. That could be an extra half hour or something, you know. So it's already done. And if you think of just the efficiency of time blocking, that's a pretty huge block we get in that dinner part of the day, where we can actually focus more on connection and catching up with, what actually happened instead of what's going to happen for dinner.
Yeah, you're not recuperating from time management.
Yeah,
Yes,
this has
we're
been so
resting.
enlightening for me. Absolutely, like something I really want to, yeah, dive into. This is really
I love
cool.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, here we've got about 6 minutes left, and I just wanted to do the reveal. This is what I came up with. Um, so life without clarity. I just drew a picture of a mirror because I'm still working on it. I'm
Wow.
really working on what I want to clearly do and how I can get all of these things together. But I did write at the bottom, values, decisions, and behaviors, just as a mental note of things that I can check, because I really love the connection between actions and objectives. And when we have these super objectives, we have to have objectives that realistically can build up to that, or we have to adapt. So one of my current philosophies, I'm calling it the calculus of life. And if we look more at the level of acceleration rather than speed, like if you look at an objective as like, I'm right here right now, and I've got this path to get to this objective. It's a straight line. It implies that it's going to be a amount of time to get this thing, but really life looks like this. So
Right.
it's an acceleration curve where we have to be aware moment to moment. Is what I'm doing right now actually aligned with this super objective? And if not, then what changes can I make to realign it? Or do I need to change the objective? Maybe that objective no longer serves what feels like success, or what I want to achieve, or whatever, or sometimes what I'm told to achieve. We've told our 14-year-old that sometimes the lesson is jumping through flaming hoops. That's a life lesson.
Mhm.
Like, you have to. It's a lesson in adaptability. But yeah, I wanted to pass it back to Mary first before we start wrapping up. And any other thoughts that you had? I love the things that you're putting in the chat. And then John Carlos will let you close us off. We didn't get to talk about too much about the rural piece, but I also did. You did mention that your son is arriving very, very shortly. So I'm curious, what kind of preparations, what does that look like, to prepare for that new piece of the equation. So Mary, if you have any closing thoughts or
No, we got to have him back.
musings.
We
Yeah.
got to have
Oh,
John
for
Carlos
sure.
back.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that at all. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
As far as preparation, I've been preparing realistically ever since I found out. So from that moment, I started thinking, okay, how do I make more money by working less? That has literally been my entire directive for the last 9 months, and that's why I
I
said,
love
like,
that.
I don't know if I consider myself lazy, because I definitely enjoy working. I just don't enjoy working on things that technology can do for me, and that's where I kind of reconcile that, especially as the technology is only getting crazier. But anyways, I've been preparing since then. But as far as like practicality, figuring out how to make more money while working less and being more present with my wife. So learning how to automate more of my decisions. So that's just always a lifelong battle. But then the other side of it is just working on the schedule. So like right now, I think I'm going to start practicing. I have been going to bed early at 8 p.m. lately, which is just a 2-hour reduction from 10 p.m. My previous schedule was 4 a.m. wake up and 10 p.m. sleep. So, and that's worked out for me for over a decade.
Nice.
But I'm probably going to transition to 2 a.m. And 8 p.m. sleep. And so that'll just kind of help so that I can focus on whatever my son needs in the morning, allow my wife to sleep and preserve her energy. That way, when she wakes up around 8 or 9, she can worry just about the dogs for a moment, kind of rest and relax. And then when she's ready to go, I'll, let her take care of him for about 4 hours. That way I can completely focus on what I'm doing for 4 hours. And then by the end of that session, I should be pretty much done with all of my work, because that puts me at about 2 p.m. in the day. And then that gives us those 6 hours to be able to spend time together as a family. So that's the basic plan. It's just all
So
about the
beautifully
scheduling.
calculated.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like blown
No, I
away.
love it. Yeah.
Everything is calculated. Everything is calculated. If it can be measured, I've measured it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that's, I mean, I'm so happy for you, because you are in for some of the best moments of your life.
I'm excited.
I mean, I'm
Is this your first
sure people have
child? Is
told
it your
you
first
there's
child?
certain things.
Yeah.
Oh,
First
really
child.
exciting. Yay. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for, I agree. I think we definitely, ability, especially at the beginning, as we were adapting in real time. I think I said, blessed are
Don't
the
even worry about
flexible,
it.
for they won't be bent out of shape. So,
There you go.
everyone, we're going to be signing off here. This is the Now Show. Tomorrow we've got from X. Her name is Waltzing Peacock, and she is one of the people on the Copernic space mission, and she has in particular a lot to tell us about Spaceables. So be here tomorrow for that, and otherwise, make a beautiful now, and we'll see you tomorrow. So, all right.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Y'all have a
and
great
thank you,
day.
Mary. Round of applause for Mary,
Thank you, Mary.
co-host with the Moses. Awesome. Okay, bye for now.
All right.
Bye.
Have a great day, everybody.